Alrighty, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Today's special guest is Professor Dr. Hariharan. You may know him as a marketing professor here at UCF. We had the privilege of meeting him through Whitney, who made the connection and reached out. And we're excited that he took time out of his personal day to come and speak with us. So, without any further ado, he'll be talking about data-driven decision making. So I'll pass on the mic to the professor. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Really appreciate it. And although Whitney is not here, I have to thank her because she's the one who initiated this. Gave me this opportunity to talk about data-driven decision making. So, which Whitney was, if you know, she was in my class last semester, and I would say she was one of the best students. So she was asking me all the questions that went beyond what I was teaching in the class. So and 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 I hope she benefited from it. And now, you know, although she's not here, she's celebrating her birthday. I wish her happy birthday through this call. And in terms of the participants, I don't see any of the names from my class. So I'm guessing that um, the others, I already talked to Christian and Lily, but I'm guessing Jana, Inston, and Cecilia, you're probably, um, you know, will be taking my course, I guess, sometime in the future. So I'm teaching digital marketing, both in the spring and in the fall. Fall and in the spring. And so I'm hoping that I'll see you guys in person in the class. But today, my topic that I wanted to talk about is not about digital marketing. It's about something that's more closer to my heart than digital marketing. Although digital marketing has some flavor to it, this is something that I really like, and I really appreciate the time that you have taken from your day to actually come and do this, attend this talk, which means I'm hoping that you are interested in this topic of data-driven decision making. Um, and I think this is really important. That's what I'm going to talk about. But I also really appreciate you for taking your time and attending this session. And I think I'm one of the very few that is very well qualified in UCF to talk about this topic, because I have 15 years of experience, more than 15 years of experience with handling data and analytics. Believe it or not, I started my career as a software engineer, as a database developer in Oracle before moving on to academia. And then throughout my academic career, I have done research on and consulted uh, companies from various industries like consumer packaged goods, pharmaceuticals, sports sponsorship. That's a topic that I'm right now working on. That's very interesting for me. I published a paper on Formula One recently, where that's a paper that appeared in Forbes magazine, where there is a lot of interest on how companies use the sports sponsorship money to actually come up with innovations. And I'm also right now working on projects on electronic industry, on smartphones, in terms of designing of features. And over several years, I've worked with different retailers in grocery retailing, wine retailing, and flower wholesalers, and so on. And I've also taught not just digital media marketing, but I've also taught other courses that are more closer to data analytics. I've taught marketing analysis. I'm sure either you have taken that course or you will be taking that course as a marketing major. I've taught that course both at the undergraduate level as well as at the graduate level. And I've also taught that combining with strategy, marketing strategy, as strategic marketing decision making, not only for at the university level, but I've also done workshops for executives on how they can use data from their own company to make real decisions. So I've done some workshops for executives from banking industry, public sector industries, and so on. And in my previous institution, I've designed a whole new curriculum for on a graduate level for data science and marketing analytics. So this is combining both the recent hype that you all hear about, like AI, machine learning, those kind of topics, combining that with marketing. So how can you use that for marketing decision making? So this is just a brief introduction about myself in terms of why I'm qualified to talk about this topic. So now, in terms of what I want to talk about is, I want to first start talking about what is data-driven decision making. So that's the what. And then I want to talk about the why. So why is this important? Why should you care about? For students that are attending now and that are watching, that will be watching later this recording, why is this important? Why should you invest your time and effort in data-driven decision making? And for amateurs, for students that are in school, how can you get started? So given that this is an important topic, how can you get started? And this goes into what Christian was earlier mentioning. So not only just in terms of the topic, but also I would say more of a career direction in terms of, given that most of you are starting your career right now, and I believe this is something that will be a great value add for you when you grow in your career. And this is something that you can keep it in your toolbox whenever you have opportunity and you can use that. So, and then how can you get started? And there are plenty of ways that you can do that. Okay, before I go into the topic itself, I want to ask you, given that we only have 5 of you here, I want to kind of first brainstorm, look at what level you are in right now before I do my own kind of spiel. So what do you think is data-driven decision making? So what comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is, at least for me, before making a decision, making sure that you evaluated your options so that you're making the right one. And by evaluating your options, maybe it's a report or some kind of analysis that clearly tells you, hey, this is the bad decision, this is the good one, and this is everything in between.
Awesome, Kristen. Lily, did you want to add something?
Yeah, he just pretty much said what I was going to say, but yeah, it's just pretty much making decision based on what the numbers are telling you. So like Christian said, like if a number tells you this is a better decision, then you would make sure that you consider it at least if that's the decision that you want to do, but definitely takes a big role on the decision making process.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Considering the numbers and evaluating all the options. And Easton says lots of Excel probably. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. So Lily says numbers and Easton says Excel. Yeah, so that's, it's a combination of it. So it involves numbers. It involves doing some analysis like Christian mentioned, and evaluating the options, and then making the decision that looks at all the different options that are available, and then making a judgment based on what the numbers say, right? So what I would say is that it's not just the numbers. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily wrong. If it's fully numbers, I would call as that fully automated decision. So think about your recommendation algorithm. So when you go to Disney Plus or Netflix or Hulu, which I'm sure most of you are have an account and looking at these options, and they give you some recommendations, right? So those recommendations are not made by human beings. Those are made by machines that crunch the numbers based on what are the things that you watched, and come up with recommendations that are also based on what other people are watching, right? So there is like a whole network of information that it uses to crunch to come up with this decision. So that's all the wherever you read about AI, machine learning, that's what it is. So it's fully automated decision. There is no human involvement. The humans are all just there to write the programs, and after the program is written, they don't know what the data is. The data is all crunched by by machines. On the other extreme is most of the decisions that companies face, like what price to set, how much to advertise, and those are at the very macro level, and then even coming to the micro level, even giving an example of digital marketing. So how much should I bid for specific keywords, or what should be the creative of an ad? Should I use red color or yellow color? Should I use a celebrity in the picture, right? So these are all everyday decisions which your machine cannot really help, because it will not have a lot of information to give, answer your question. And that's what I call as gut feel decision. So most of these decisions are not made through data. They're just made by, okay, so I like this color more, and I like this design of the website more, and I think this is what will attract the customer. But you don't know, although you can test it, and that's what we're going to talk about. And there is a balance, and the balance is what I call as data-driven decision making. On the one hand, you have fully automated decision of your recommendation agents like Netflix, your social media sites, looking at what's the next content that you want to look at. So that numbers that it crunch based on your behavior. On the other hand, you have the gut feel, and the balancing act is the data-driven decision making. So whenever you're making a gut feel decision, you will have to look at what the data tells you, like exactly like what Christian mentioned. Whenever you're making a decision, you have to evaluate the alternatives, generate reports, look at the available options for in terms of some numbers. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And then you make a decision. Right? And I would put them in a cycle. So this is something that companies will have to do it on a loop. So whenever you're working in your job, think about what is the key performance indicator. There are different names for it. You can call them as goals or a metric, quarterly metric. Some companies call it like that. And then after you define these key performance metrics, so this could be things like you want to achieve certain level of sales target at the end of this quarter, or you want to attract certain number of visitors to your website by the end of this month, right? So there might be certain goals that you want to meet, and that's the goal that you will have to define your objective, right? So going back to what Christian mentioned, the options are evaluated, which maximizes your performance, right? So whichever goal that you're looking for. And then before collecting data or analyzing or generating these reports, you first need to measure your current performance, right? I was actually talking about a company, which is a company that you are, at least Christian and Lily, you will be working with in the fall. This is a company that you will be optimizing the website for that company. And I was asking this company, I had a talk with them last week. This is a company that has a website, and the project that you will be doing is to optimize their website. And I was asking the company, what is your current, how many visitors come to your website now? And where do they come from? What search terms do they use in the Google search? And they did not know. So they had no idea in terms of their current performance, right? So before you optimize your performance, you need to know how well your current performance is. And then you have to find out what are the factors that drive the performance. some of these would be obvious, some of them would not be very obvious. And this is where your gut feel will come into play. Although computers and these artificial intelligence algorithms can estimate when, once you give the data to it, it can find out which is the best performance that you can obtain. But if you do not know what are the drivers of the performance, you cannot even let the machine do it, right? So if you, this is something that actually takes me back to an exercise that I did with a company, a wholesale company that was selling flowers. So this company's job was to ship flowers from a wholesale location to individual stores. Think about different Publix location or so. And then their challenge was to find out how much flowers to ship. If they ship too much, then if consumers are not going to buy these flowers, then they will go waste. Or if they ship too little, and if there is too much demand of flowers, then consumers can't buy those flowers, right? So, and then what we did is that we had a brainstorming session to evaluate what are the factors that would drive the number of flowers that will get sold in a shop. And you can think about things like, the month, day of the week, the weather pattern. If it rains too much, flowers may not get sold. If it's sunny, flowers may get sold. And so we came out with a list of drivers of sales. So it was close to 20, 30 drivers. And then once you know what are the factors that affect the performance of that you want to achieve, your goal, then that's where you can change the driver. You can, and that's where your marketing actions would come in, right? So think about the 4 P's that you might have learned, right? So think about what is the price that I can set. If I reduce the price, will I sell more? If I advertise more, will the product sell more? So how can I change these drivers to increase the performance? And after you change these drivers, you will have to measure them again, right? So remember, you measured the performance before you changed some drivers, and you'll have to measure them after. And so you will know whatever you did, whether did that have an effect on your performance, so that you can use that to learn in the next round, right? And there are different names for like these measurement and testing it. In digital marketing, we would call it A/B testing. And there are other ways to do it as well, where you change something and then you see whether your performance metric, be it conversions, sales, leads that you got from the website, whether that increased. Right? Any questions? I can pause here for a minute if you have any questions. All right, so now that I think you have, most of you have a pretty good idea of what is data and analytics, why are these important? So why are data and analytics important?
I'm sorry, Professor. Are you asking the question for us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Just to make an informed decision, right? And then also it helps you. Well, right now I'm taking service marketing, and I'm learning about like the gaps between expectations and perceptions. So I feel like data analytics will be able to help bridge those gaps between what customers expect of you and how they perceive you, or the other way around, how you can manage those expectations.
Awesome. That's a really good example, Christian. Thank you. This expectations and perceptions, that's a very good example. Easton says you can predict future trends. Prediction is definitely one of the important goals of data and analytics. It's not just to explain, but also to predict what would come in the future. I gave you the example of predicting the sales of a store. That's an important value add for companies, because once you are able to predict what might happen, you can change your decisions accordingly. And going back to what Christian mentioned, the mapping between expectations and perceptions is really important for companies, because whenever and that also goes back to the gut feel based decision making. So companies would normally think that their products are positioned in a certain way in the minds of consumers, but without measuring what the consumers think about the product and what their expectations of a good product, they cannot change the positioning. I'm not sure if you're already exposed to things like perceptual map. So perceptual map is a tool that marketeers often use to find out in the consumer's mind. So this is not a real map, but is in the perception of the consumer's mind, where do different brands are located, and how can you position it such that you gain the most market share. So find out where consumers really want the brand to be positioned. And so definitely data analytics would help you in that. And also, like Easton mentioned, data and analytics would help in terms of prediction. So, and those are actually, you guys really nailed it. Those are the two objectives of data analytics. One is to explain what's going on, right? And that's what we call as descriptive analysis. The other is predictive analytics. So to predict what will happen in the future. So how will your sales look like in the future, right? So those are the important goals of data analytics. And I'm going to first start off by, from a personal level for you. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. And this is like I looked at the top paying entry-level marketing jobs this year. And the source is Indeed. So you can also check out yourself. The highest paying marketing entry-level jobs is a marketing analyst. And for a marketing analyst, so this is the US-wide median salary. So the marketing analyst would require some level of data analysis skills. So that doesn't mean that you need to do math, right? So a lot of people get confused that, hey, I'm not good at math, I might not be able to be an analyst, right? So those are different things. Although they are related, you can be a good analyst without knowing how the math is done behind it. Because nowadays, most of the tools are abstracting away from the math, right? So they are packages. You can do menu-driven clicking of packages in tools like Excel, like Easton mentioned. Obviously, Excel is a skill that is of a great value add as a marketing analyst. And you have to know ins and outs of Excel, so that will definitely help a lot. And if you're able to understand the data and interpret what comes out of these analyses, then it's going to take you a long way as a career. And after some point, and I'm expecting that in the entry level, you will be doing some of these analysis yourself. But as you advance in your career, you are not going to be doing these analysis yourself, but someone else will be doing it. But you should be able to understand what this analysis is about. And this is not something, these fundamentals are not something that's going to change, how many years it takes, like, 5 years, 10 years, doesn't matter. The fundamentals of analysis are going to be the same. Unlike the social media tool that you're using, probably, like, if you're right now doing Instagram, content developing, probably 5 years down the line, I'm not sure if Instagram is going to be the most popular tool to develop content, right? So there might be other social media platforms or other digital marketing tools. On the other hand, if you are strong in the basics of analysis, That's not going to change, how many years passes by. So that's going to be the same. Right? So that's something to keep in mind. And this is at a more personal level. I'm a strong supporter of someone having a really good grasp of the data, because in any job that you go, you will have to make decisions, and these decisions are better be backed by some data analytics. And now in this age, data is the new gold. So think about all the companies that are, trillion-dollar companies. All these companies make most of their money by using their data. So think about these social media platforms, Google, Amazon. All their business model is circulated around data, right? So when you use social media sites, or when you use Google search, or when you browse for products in Amazon, these companies use that information to design ads that are targeted towards you, right? And that's their whole business model. Right? So if you are good at analyzing data, not only for social media, but for other types of data, and if you're able to understand and work with data very well, then I'm sure there is a good, bright future for you. And so let me take you back to some history of how this data evolved. So companies have always been interested in tracking consumer behavior, what consumers are doing, what they are thinking, and to Christian's earlier point, what consumers are perceiving even before they make a decision. Right? In the beginning, like if you think about 60, 70 years ago, when computers were first invented, companies were able to store the data at a very aggregate level. So they only knew, if you take one public store, they only knew how many products came into the store and how many got sold from the store. So at the store level, they knew how many products got sold. So they were able to benchmark one store versus the other. So they can say that this store sold more products than the other store. And then the point of sale terminal started coming in. So that's where you swipe your card, right? So whenever you go to a store, you swipe your card. That became popular. And once that became popular, they not only were able to track at the aggregate level how many products are being sold, they were also able to track at the individual level how many products you are buying as an individual consumer. What products are you buying, right? And what combinations of products are you buying? So are you buying pasta with pasta sauce, right? So are you browsing, are you watching, and that's the next level, so on the internet. So when you're doing it at the same thing at the internet, then they can also look at what are the different things that you're browsing at, right? So although in Amazon, if you go and order a product, Amazon has information on all the pages that you have browsed on Amazon before actually making a purchase. And why is this information relevant? They can use this information to design better recommendation for you next time, because they can identify whether you're price conscious. Are you always looking at the products that are on discount or that's lower than the MSRP or quoted price? And or are you always looking at a high price item? Right? So they can identify whether you're price conscious or you're someone that's brand loyal. Are you always buying Apple products on Amazon? Are you looking at different brands products, right? So those are things that they can find out not only by looking at your final purchase, but also by looking at your intermediate browsing path. Now, in the recent years, so like 2015, 2020, it's not just the internet; it's all in your hand, right? So in your phone is the main source of data for these companies. Which apps are you using? And most of these companies can track other apps that you're using. So which apps are you using? what social media profiles are you following, and they can not only target there, but they can target cross devices, right? So they can identify you as a person, not only in one device, but also across devices. And through that, they can better identify and categorize you as a person, and then they can identify your behavioral characteristics. And that information feeds into the machine that I talked about earlier. And these are all crunched into the numbers. And then you get recommendations and ads on social media based on the content that you consume, right? And I'm sure that in the future, more technologies will get developed, and you already know that you have voice service like Alexa or Siri that can also find out what you want to buy even before you're actually even considering to buy the product, right? So based on your conversations and listening to what you're talking. So that's why this is like more of a historical perspective of why data analytics is important, because companies will always look for better ways to find out how to target its consumers. Because if you look at in the olden days, consumers also benefit from it. Like in the olden days, consumers were not able to be targeted, which means that they end up with products that they might not fully utilize. Whereas now you can better target these consumers. You can really identify which are your consumers, and using that you will get targeted advertisements and targeted content from your influentials. And so that information will help you make better, more informed decisions, which you might not have done like maybe 10 years or 5 years ago. So this is something, an example, and I want to say if my video plays well, but let's give it a shot. And this is an example that I really like. I don't know if anyone of you know this example. Do you guys know about this Target case? And this is like 15, 20 years ago, although it feels like it could have been in news also today.
Is it the one that with a lawsuit? I don't want to spoil it in case anybody knows. With a father?
I think there was a lawsuit in there, but
Was it the one with the father and the
I don't know
daughter?
which was the specific one. What was that?
Was it the one with the father and the daughter?
That's the one. That's the
Okay.
one. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know it. All right. So I'm guessing the others don't know it.
Oh, I think I know also.
Okay.
Brother Christian said that. Now I think it rings a bell.
Okay, so I'm guessing Jenna, Easton, and Cecilia don't know it, and I'm going to play it anyways. So this is, so it's a funny but interesting instance of how Target used its data and analytics to really target, a consumer.
Did you know that by studying shoppers' habits, companies can predict what you want to buy? And sometimes that's a problem. A few years ago, for instance, a father walked into a Target store in Minnesota, clutching an advertisement. He started yelling at the manager. "Did you send this to my daughter?" he asked. The ad contained all these coupons for baby clothes and bottles and formula and cribs. "She's still in high school and you're sending her ads for baby clothes?" he screamed at the manager. "Are you trying to encourage her to get pregnant?" The store manager apologized, and a few days later called the guy to apologize again. The father was somewhat abashed. "It turns out there's been some activities in my house that I wasn't aware of," he told the manager. "I had a long conversation with my daughter. She's due in August. It turns out I owe you an apology." Target had created a computer model that could figure out which shoppers were pregnant just by studying their shopping habits. Identifying pregnant women is the holy grail of retail. People with new babies are so tired that if you can get them inside your doors to buy bottles and formula, they'll end up buying everything else they need as well. And if a new parent starts shopping at Target, they'll keep coming back for years. So how did Target start marketing to parents before the baby arrived? Lots of people buy lotion, But a Target data analyst noticed that women on Target's baby registry started buying very large quantities of lotion in about their second trimester. Someone else noticed that in about their 20th week, pregnant women started loading up on vitamins. By crawling through the data, Target was able to identify about 25 different items that, when analyzed together, would allow them to predict if someone was pregnant. Target's program was so accurate that it could assign almost any regular shopper a pregnancy prediction score. But the problem with all this data, as the father in Minnesota demonstrated, is that Target couldn't let on how much they knew. After all, shoppers might get a little bit upset if they received an advertisement making it clear that Target was studying their reproductive plans. So how did Target solve this problem? They started mixing in ads for bottles, formula, with other products that had nothing to do with pregnancy, like lawnmowers and wine glasses, things that they knew a pregnant woman wouldn't necessarily be interested in. As a result, the baby ads looked random, and it worked. Women started using the coupons, and Target's mom and baby sales exploded.
So this is actually from 2002, but like I said, it could have been from today because they were one of the pioneers in using big data and machine learning to identify shoppers' habits. And why is this interesting now is that even though, this has been over about 2 decades of using data and analytics, a recent CMO survey found that companies, like more than 50% of companies, still do not use quantitative approach to, quantify their impact. So what they're doing, like if you were to ask your CEO for like $1 million budget to spend on digital ads, and if you don't quantify, you're saying that, hey, there some sales increased and I don't know how much came because of the ads that I spent, that's not a good answer. So it seems that most of the companies are still doing that. They're not really showing the impact of marketing quantitatively, or they're not showing any impact at all, right? So it's just that they're investing as a part of the process without actually showing proof that it actually works. So all this thing that I was talking about is still relevant. It's not like, it's not obvious for companies apparently because they're still not doing it. And so, that's why I wanted to emphasize the point that lots of companies are not doing it. And I'm sure that whenever you start working in a company, you would encounter that many of the decisions are taken without solid grounding in terms of the data. They just do it because a manager asks you to do it. And so that's something that, that's not okay because, there's no face validity or there is no backing to that kind of decision making. All right, so I hope that you're now convinced that data and analytics are important for marketing decision making, and that they are important both personally for your own career as well as for the companies you work in. Now the question is, okay, so how can you get started? Once you want to measure performance, you want to start tracking everything. Like I mentioned earlier, you first want to define your key performance indicator, which means that you need to start making everything into data. Right? So if you're creating a new ad, codify what is the creative you used, what was the color, what was the text in the ad, and where was it placed? Was it placed in Instagram? Was it non-digital ad? Was it a search ad? So codify everything, because you cannot perform any analytics without data, right? So data is crucial for analytics. And you can start simple by experimenting. Lots of platforms would let you do A/B testing. So if you want to know which type of ad is going to work or which type of social media content is going to work, you can have multiple versions of the content and you can let the tool do A/B testing. So A/B testing, in short, is that randomly one of the version of the content will be presented to the consumers, and you will know which version has the highest, whatever performance metric that you're interested in. Clicks, conversions, views, and this is something that you can only do it online. Offline A/B testing becomes more difficult, and online it's relatively easy, and all the tools have this option. To get more information about what consumers are searching about, right? To understand your consumers better, there are lots of free databases available. Google Trends is an excellent resource. If you don't know what Google Trends is, just go to trends.google.com and you can type in any keyword and it will give you the historic trend of that keyword, right? So whichever companies that you're working on and the type of content that you're going to put in your social media, just Google for those keywords and see what type of consumers are interested. You can also zoom in terms of state, city, it gives you multiple options. Another free database, I forgot to put it in there, is Facebook Ad Manager. So you can literally see all the ads that are appearing on Facebook, right? And so before you design your own ad, look at what your competitors are doing in that industry, right? So you can literally look at all the ads that are going on in Facebook. And so these are lots of free databases that are available for you to get started. Whether you do it online marketing or offline marketing, doesn't matter. If you're doing offline, I would highly recommend Census Database, Bureau of Labor Statistics. They give you a lot of information on what's the income, what's the demographics of people in this specific location, and that's an excellent resource for you to get started. You can customize your marketing in an offline way to specific geographic location depending on this information. And whenever you have data, when you start getting data, and that's something humans are really good at, is to identify patterns. Once you start putting them into data, I'm sure that you will be able to identify patterns. No machine will have to tell you. And obviously you can take the help of a machine to identify these patterns. Excel does it really good. But I think you can also do it if you just glance through it. You can do plots, you can visualize, in Excel. And I think like Easton mentioned earlier, if you can get the data in Excel and you can do these visualizations, that will give you a lot of insights. More things on how to get started. So there are lots and lots of free tools, not only data, but lots of tools are also free. If you're going to take my course, Christian and Lily, I'm already telling you, Google Analytics, the beginner certificate is something that I will require all the students to take. If you have free time in the summer, you can do a head start and you can do the Google Analytics for Beginner certificate already now, and you will be free for one of the assignments. You don't have to do it at that time. So that's something that I will require you to do, but there are lots of other free tools. Facebook just recently, Facebook used to have an analytics, but they recently, actually starting from July, they closed down the Facebook analytics and they integrated it part of the Google Facebook Business Suite. That's something that I already mentioned earlier, that has all the ads that are appearing in Facebook, and you can do a lot of analytics on the data that you get from Facebook. Excel is, I would say that's the tool for analytics. You should be proficient with Excel, not just to do the courses, but other than that, whenever you get a chance, just play around with Excel. There are lots of functionalities in Excel and that you can explore. If you're really interested in analytics, and if you want to go one step further than Excel, I would recommend RStudio, but that's something that you will have to code. So you would need some programming skills beyond just doing menu driven. But believe it or not, I actually did not know RStudio R until 2 years ago. So I actually learned it in one summer 2 years ago. And the benefit of learning R is that everything is online. So whatever you want to learn, R is so popular that I cannot think of a single thing that anyone else have not done before, right? So if whenever you have any question, just go to Google and enter that query. I'm sure you will have an answer, in the first click, right? So everyone would have solved that, and that's why R became so popular. It's like the social media equivalent of programming. There are tons and tons of packages. You don't have to do anything, and you can, whatever code that you want to write, it won't be more than a couple of lines of code. There are, this is what I mentioned with Google Analytics. This Google Analytics for beginners is mandatory for the digital marketing course. When you come for the digital marketing course, I will require you to do the Google Analytics for beginners. But that's not the end. There are actually more courses on Google Analytics Academy that you can take that can give you much better idea of using data from Google Analytics. In terms of books, I would recommend these two books. I believe if you are taking or are going to take marketing analysis course, MAR 3615, the marketing analytics by Winston is the book that they would use in that course. So that's a book using Excel. And for those students that are interested in learning R, I would highly recommend this book, R for Marketing Research and Analytics. This is a really new book. I think it came out 1 or 2 years ago. And more than the book, I would recommend just Googling for anything that you want to learn R. R is something that's like a very open source. You can learn everything by just Googling for it, right? And in some instances, I would actually prefer R more than Excel because I can do things faster in R than I would do in Excel because I will have to do a lot of things manually, but R is a lot more through the package. If you just know specific packages, and then you can just write like one line of code and you will get the answer. So it's really quick in R. And R also helps very well with data processing. So R can handle large data, different types of data very well. And so that's something that if you're interested, I would highly recommend. All right, so that's it for me for today. I'm curious to know if you have any questions.
So yeah, I have a few. The first one that I have is I know you kind of gave us like some knowledge and resources on where we can begin to learn about data analytics and stuff like that. But where can I start? Like, I guess that's my real question because I haven't really done any research on it. Right, it's like the first I'm hearing it. But what do entry level jobs in this kind of field require, specifically from students? So I was wondering if maybe you can speak a little bit on that.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Like I said, marketing analysts, the job, most of them would require you to have a good knowledge of Excel. So Excel is actually the tool that most of the companies use themselves, like, at the very basic level. Once you get more advanced, there could be other tools that you may want to learn. But I would say to start, like from scratch, if you just really want to begin, I would really start with Excel to learn the basics of Excel. So what are the things that you can do? And there is a very important package that's there in Excel, which is called as data analysis for Excel. And that's an add-on on top of Excel. And if you have that, you can do more advanced analysis And then, but I would even start even before that. So just going to Excel, loading some data, doing some plots, because Excel has amazing visualization tools like these bar graphs and histograms and charts. That gives you already a very good perspective of what your data is and what it looks like. And that's something that you can already start doing. And I'm not sure, have you already taken the MAR 3615?
Yeah, I just finished 3613 as well. So I'm
Oh,
familiar. Yeah, I'm familiar with the thing in Excel. So I guess, I mean, I'll take this opportunity to kind of ask somewhat of like a personal question, right? Like for myself, maybe some advice. So I often find myself, specifically here at school, stuck between like, should I try to find an internship where, or maybe a job where I can gain the experience, but it might not necessarily be what I want, or it might not be to the capacity in which I want to learn, or the industry, or whatever. Or should I just kind of start something myself and kind of like experiment? So like, what if I started, or if I partnered up with somebody locally who has, they're a local influencer. Maybe they somebody that eats food, and they want to know, like, I don't know, something with their social media analytics and their website or whatever. Like, so I'm always between those two crossroads, right? Like, should I start grassroots with something, or should I try to find who are these big people, who are the major players here, and try to get something very entry level there? And I'm always conflicted, right? Because there's benefits to both. But specifically with this, it's not like, it's just like how you said, I can punch in the data into Excel, but at least if it was just me in front of my computer, I'll eventually get to the point where I'm not like, okay, cool, I found the I can tell what the p-values are, I know what's significant, what's not. Where do I go from here, right? So I think that's where my frustration and my curiosity lies, and maybe if I can get your advice on that.
okay. Yeah, so that's like a I would say a two-part question. So let me first like kind of answer to your first question as to like what kind of role should you look for in terms of something that's more established or something that you would and if I understand that those are kind of the choices that you have. So something where it might be a bit you know there might be a steeper learning curve, but you're not sure if that's something that you'll have to take or something that's more established. I would always go with the steeper learning curve, because the reason is in the beginning you may want to get out of your comfort zone, and then like invest in something that you would learn, and especially if, like I think you mentioned social media analytics. So I would say that's going to be the future of the marketing industry. And I think, if I were to predict, like, this is a prediction, like, data-based prediction for you. So if I were to predict, like, this marketing analyst that I talked about today is going to be in 2-3 years is going to be social media analyst, right? So social media analytics is like a very, very, very introductory stage at this point. A lot of companies do very, very basic social media analytics at this point. So if at all they do anything, because some of these tools are pretty new, unlike Google Analytics, which has been around for a while. Social media analytics are pretty new, and so lots of companies don't have anyone that can even infer data on social media analytics. So my guess is that whatever things that they are doing on social media, either in terms of own content creation or ads that they're placing on social media, those are all just based on gut feel. And I have not heard much about that they're using database decision in terms of the social media content. So I would definitely, if I were you, I would definitely choose that. If you could do something that could be a bit more ad hoc or learning on the go, but still there's like something that you're going to use in the long run. And coming to your second question, so I have my data, I know how to. So before I move on, does that answer your question, or did I misunderstand?
No, you definitely answered it. Just thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So going to your second question, your question is that I have my data, I know how to run my analysis, then so what, right? So that's your second question. So that's why I didn't. So if you if I were to, let me go back to my the cycle that I showed you before. So it's not about, so what you said, that you know how to run the analysis, you have the data. So those are all here. And I would actually ask you to go back to the drawing board and ask you, what are you optimizing? What's your key performance indicator? And this is something, so let's say you're working in a company and your manager says that this is something that you're optimizing. So, this could be social media content, right? So what are you trying to increase at the end of this month, right? So by creating these new content, do you want more visitors, more conversions? And because those are all different, because more visitors, you may want different type of content. Like you can have some humorous or funny content to increase visitors or people that can click like for your content. But conversions is a whole different ballgame, and you might need different type of content for conversion. So what's the goal that you have in mind? And then I would say that you will have to collect, or you might already have the data, but think about it from that perspective. So think about your data from the KPI or goals perspective, and not just like, trying to identify patterns in the data without having an objective. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Professor?
Yes, Cecilia.
Hi.
Hi.
Professor, I have a question. For example, well, I just started UCF on August last year, so I'm gonna pretty much be finished with my basic requirements to get into my major. I'm gonna do marketing, but I'm trying to do a minor in statistics. I really love
That's a good
statistics.
choice.
I think that I love statistics. So one of the questions for my professor was, for my professor in like QMB was like, how would I know if this is something that I really want to do in the future, because exactly when I took QMB, I knew that this is something that I want to continue, studying. That is something that I really want to do in the future. So that's what I was thinking of on a minor in statistics. But he never talked to me, or he never told me what it is that I was going to be doing in the future, with that career. He said, like, you can go to career services and you can speak to one of your advisor. I'm like, you're the professor. It's like, you know, and one of the teacher assistants at that point, I asked her, it was a girl from China and she was doing her master's degree here at UCF. And I asked her, because the professor wasn't responding to my questions. So I asked her, what is something that you really like about the statistics? And well, she went through a lot of things. And from my point of view, I think that she knew what she was talking about. And, and I really like her. And I asked her, how would I know if this is something for me? And she was the one telling me, like, you should be able to take an elective, probably, from QMB, the following, and study language R. Probably if you study that and you do the elective and you do well, then this is probably that you are going to be doing in the future, because statistics gets harder and harder, the ones you advance. Is that true?
So it depends on the requirement, I would say. Like, I know the requirement from the marketing major perspective, but I'm not sure what's the requirement for the minor. But I would say, like, if so I can talk about it from the jobs perspective. I think the combination of marketing and statistics is excellent. So it's a really good choice because, this is the time when, all the jobs have some element of statistics in it. So if you have statistics, that's going to be a very great value add. And actually, I showed you the career trajectories of marketing related jobs. But if you actually look at the number one most paid jobs now, it's actually data scientists and statisticians. So I would actually argue that and not just, there is actually, these are two elements of the spectrum. So if you just do statistics, you need to translate that into business decisions. So that's why I would say the combination of marketing and statistics would really help you in that sense. But in terms of the requirement, unfortunately, I don't know because I'm not in the statistics department. So you may want to check what's the requirement for the minor, whether it is it's going to be complicated. But I would say, if you are interested in doing statistics, and if you can do it, that's something that I would definitely go for.
And for example, in the future, if I plan on applying to an internship, which position do you think I will be looking for to start?
You would have plenty of options. You would have plenty of options. Like I said, data science, just, if you look for data science related jobs, data science is the term now, and that's the hottest job market. So lots of positions cannot be filled because people don't have that skill. People don't have that statistics skill. And, I know that that's something that's hard to come by. There's not a lot of statisticians around. And that's because of, there's lots of demand of such kind of position, but there's very little supply. So there's not a lot of candidates out there. So I would, although you can be focused on marketing, but you can also go broader and just apply for any data science related positions.
Yeah, for example, that is something that I know I wouldn't like to go on sales because I've been working for the longest time in retail, and I was a server as well. So to me, I've always been selling and, upselling so I can make tips out of that, and then I was coaching as well when I was on retail to push and to get about the credit cards and all the things, that we have to go through. So I've been on sales. I know what that is. I don't want a career on sales, because I've already done it. I feel, that I've already done it. So I would like to focus on something that is is not in the, it has like a higher demand, so I can obviously take benefit from that and, earn more money as well,
Right. So any position that's about, marketing analyst, that's something that I mentioned before. So marketing analyst, and a more broader position is called as business analyst. So business analyst is not just marketing, but can also transcend across multiple sides of the business, like any strategic decisions that involve data and analysis is called as business analyst. And a more technical term now, people, if you learn to do some coding, like even R, then that will be a huge value add. So, then you can go into data science related jobs.
Yeah, I was trying. I didn't know if I have to get a certification for language R. Do I have to get certificated for that in order to get an internship with no experience?
I don't know. I don't know on top of my head if there is any actually certification. So usually I only see Coursera courses, but not really certifications.
Yeah, because I've been researching a little bit, and it says it talks about Tableau, the big data, Tableau, SQL, Python, and R. That is something that it was already on my mind, and thinking that I have to already start going through all these, going ahead, because I know that I'm just gonna get into my major. So I know that I will be taking a lot of marketing things, but like I know for sure that I don't want to do sales. Like I've done it, I know how to, I think, but I would like to really get focused on what it is, the analytics. Would you recommend me to go and do it on my own, whatever is Python and language?
Yeah, like I said, most of these tools are self-paced learning. So there are lots of projects that are online, so you can just get your hands dirty on using some test data sets. So there are lots of data sets that are also available that you can just play around with, and you can also find a lot of code online. And then all you have to do is you have to understand what that code is about. So, by doing that, you can practice with that code. And the advantage of R or Python is that you don't have to really learn anything. Just like, if I were to speak like English or Spanish, then you need to know the words, but you can just Google everything. Like, so think about when you're writing an R code, I don't know any of the packages, I don't know any of the code myself, but I still write like lines and lines of R code. It's all by Googling. So I just like Google and get all the information from there. So literally, if you ask me, if you turn off Google and if you ask me to write an R code, I don't know how to write an R code, but you can just learn everything, and you can also learn it on the fly. So as you go along.
Okay, yeah, I was practicing on Python, and I was going through YouTube and see how some people do it, and I was practicing, and I got really excited because I'm like, is this that easy? Is this really easy? Is Python really easy? Because I'm getting excited here. So I don't know, maybe my career goes through that, because like I feel like very motivated to, go and look for other things, go and read more about analytics and go ahead and do my research.
Yeah, so definitely, like, as you start exploring like R or Python, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Like, I'll be more than happy to
yeah, I will be bothering you probably
sure.
every month. Every month, because right now I'm going through Python, like I'm going like on YouTube, or I'm like watching other people doing it, and other people teaching, like it's like a 4-hour or 6-hour, but I'm taking my time and going through that. I'm trying to learn and get ahead of everything, because I don't want to just wait until I have a class or I have a course or something like that. I just want to learn it before, so I can have questions and I can ask, and I can, get immersed in that analytics world, I think.
Yeah, so if you're if you're learning Python, I would, one of the tools that I would recommend, I would just put it in the chat here. It's called colab.google.com. So that's an online tool. So you don't even need, let me get. Yeah, so Colab, so they changed the name now. So it's colab.research.google.com. So this is an excellent tool online if you want to learn Python. You don't have to install Python on your own computer even. You can write your code, save your code, and execute your code, everything through this tool.
Okay, I will do that. I downloaded Python on my computer, and I was playing with it, but I will check that out.
And they also have a lot of example data, so you can also play around with that.
Oh, okay. Professor, another question is like, how data analytics with project management and customer behavior, like are they like connected to each other?
So data analytics, project management, and customer. So I can say that customer behavior, in order to understand customer behavior, you would need data and analytics. And so most of the analysis that companies do is analyzing customer data. So how customers do what they do, like, what do they browse? What are the things that they shop online? So how do they actually convert? And so that's all essentially consumer behavior, but it's just quantification of consumer behavior. So consumer behavior is understanding what make consumers do what they do, like, purchase something, evaluate something, and so on. And so you can quantify it using data analytics. So that's that. But your other question was related to project management.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can be connected. So, obviously, if you're someone like a project manager, you might have to do some analytics plus some project management. Like, there are tools like GitHub. I don't know if you're aware of GitHub, which is an online project management tool where different people can code on the same project. So that can also be there, but like, I don't see how they can be directly used, for instance.
Okay. Yeah, that's some kind of like questions because like I just took supply chain management. So they were talking about something like project management and something that interests me as well on the supply chain, So I was just trying to look for more information and see if, they were connected or something like that. But yeah. Thank you, Professor, for your
great questions. Thank you. Thanks, Cecilia. Christian, you have a question?
Yeah, this was just to see if you knew. I remember a couple weeks ago I got a notification from OPD saying that they were offering a new degree under the economics department, like that further expands the QMB series. And it was just to kind of add a little bit of context to what Cecilia was talking about. But they have a course, QMB 3310, spreadsheets in business analytics, and then they have another one where it's QMB 3311, which is Python in business analytics. So I don't know too much about it. I just remember, like, I have the announcement open, so I don't know what the actual major is or what. Maybe if the professor knows anything about it, he could speak on it a little bit.
So I actually, honestly, I did not know that this came out, this announcement came out, but I know that at the college level, there has been a lot of discussions, also along with the advisory board. Like, so we have some companies that are kind of guiding us with our curriculum. And one of the points that they consistently raise, and these are companies that hire UCF grads, and one of the things that they consistently raise is that they want our students to have better data analysis skills. And there were some discussion towards this end to make this more centralized at the business school level. And I think that's what you're probably referring to, Christian, is that these are additional courses on top of this QMB series to have more Excel skills, more Python skills, and more statistics skills. So I don't know to what extent they already got implemented. I was involved in the discussion, but I wasn't privy to what actually happened after that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know too. I know that as soon as classes start, I know that I have to be there probably with a OPD, someone that can guide me through, and if I'm planning on doing a minor, probably I need to know which classes I'm gonna take and what elective that I would like to add to my curricula as well.
Definitely. Yeah, and like I said, please feel free to reach out. If you want to go ahead, in terms of your in terms of programming with R or Python, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Professor.
Any other questions?
Well, I don't think we have any additional questions. So, Professor, it's amazing presentation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and speak with us. This has been very insightful, and I know I'm going to be revisiting this video soon. So, thank you for allowing us to record it, and I'll be sure to pass on your birthday wishes to Whitney. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. This was really interesting, and I got to know that you're all interested. Like, I'm really glad to have, even if it's a handful of students. I'm hoping that more students will watch the recording. But I'm glad to know that students are interested in data and analytics. And I'm also glad that you're looking to improve your knowledge in this area, and then you will be applying some of this. And have a good evening, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Alrighty, thank you. So for the last couple of members that are in here and that are remaining, I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind you. I think everybody in here is an AMA member. So am I right, Lily?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to remind you, we do have board positions available, and if you're interested in, please apply. We need people, and we'd love to have you guys be a part of the team. So I know I've seen a lot of you on several occasions, especially during the summer, so that helps out a lot. So if you're looking for an opportunity to just learn more and help grow this organization, we would be happy to have you. So I think the links are on the Instagram, so please check them out, apply, and yeah, I think that's all I have for today. I'm not gonna go into the spiel on how to become a members because we're all members here. So.
So if you all just have a minute, if Jenna and Easton can also turn on their webcam, I just wanted to take like a snapshot, and I just wanted to put it on LinkedIn if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, please.
Let's see. All right, so let me. Okay, everyone, say hi. Hi. All right. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for your time.
Have a great day.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.